James and Ben back here for OddsChecker. We got another UFC card. I think we're still a bit hungover from UFC 284 and what an incredible card that is, but we are back with UFC Vegas 69. Maybe not the strongest card, but we're going to preview it anyways. Let's get into it. So first, we're going to start here on the prelims. We think this fight might be on the main card. We're still trying to get confirmation. Usually they have 5 fights on the main card, but we're going to start with this Jim Miller and Alex Hernandez fight, and actually a late replacement in this one. Hernandez stepping in on short notice. But if you look right now on OddsChecker, Alex Hernandez, the favorite at minus 225, almost minus 300 on some lines here. The comeback on Jim Miller, plus 190 around there. Who are you liking here, Ben?
Yeah, you mentioned to me before that you like Jim Miller. I also like Jim Miller at this price. Alexander Hernandez, he's younger. He's probably more explosive at this age. He should be probably the favorite in this spot. The line might look right if you look at who he's supposed to be as a fighter, but we just haven't. I haven't seen it from him, especially over his last few fights. It seems like he took a little bit of a step up in competition. Now he's 1-3 in his last 4. We just haven't really seen it from him, and I'm not sure I'm sold on him to be this big of a favorite in this spot against a veteran fighter. He has the experience in the age. Jim Miller's 39, but it's not like Jim Miller's necessarily even on his way out. I mean, he's on a 3-fight win streak right now. He actually looks pretty good, and he's 39, yeah, but I mean, he's not even over his 40s. He still probably has at least some time left. He has, I think he has some of the most wins in the UFC history. So, the veteranship is there. He's on a pretty good streak right now. So he has to have some confidence coming into this fight. And yeah, like you said, the short notice thing plays against him too. So I like this where it is at the line. I like the underdog spot.
Yeah, I don't usually get this high in an underdog, but I was honestly shocked when I was doing my preview show on Monday. I thought the line was wrong. I think Jim Miller should be the favorite here, and here's why. You've got Alex Hernandez, who we've seen this time and time again with his fights. Either he gets a first-round finish, like we've seen. I mean, we can get countless examples, right? Mike Breeden, Chris Grutzmacher, Beneil Dariush. He had a really good win over him in 42 seconds. Otherwise, he usually gets finished, or it's a close decision. There's no in between. This is sort of the formula with Alex Hernandez. That Billy Quarantillo fight's a prime example. Alex looked in control of the first round, and Billy was looking in some trouble. But what happened? Hernandez wasn't able to put him away. Quarantillo survived, and then he came back and finished Hernandez. And Hernandez, always the same thing happens. He always kind of gasses out. And you're fighting a veteran in Jim Miller who's seen all of this. He's faced better fighters than Alex Hernandez before. And I went back and looked. You look at Jim Miller's losses. His last stoppage loss was against Charles Oliveira in 2018. That was a first-round finish. But hey, Charles Oliveira, he's submitting everyone. Wouldn't put that past him. The only other knockout loss he's had is from Dan Hooker, but that's not really typical of Jim Miller. You see him losing decisions here. He's not really getting knocked out, and he's fighting guys with knockout power like Scott Holtzman. Jim Miller at plus 200 might be one of the best lines we're going to get this year. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just plus 190, plus 200. If you can get him for any sort of plus money, bet Jim Miller, and even maybe look at Jim Miller by stoppage as well. I know Miller doesn't finish a lot of his fights, but Hernandez does get finished a lot. So, and keep in mind as well, Hernandez stepping up on short notice. He was just at featherweight, so he had to cut a bunch of weight not that long ago. I think there's a lot of reasons like Jim Miller here. So take the plus money on Jim Miller. Go bark those dogs this Saturday. So there we go. Okay, next fight we're going to look at is in the light heavyweight division. We've got William Knight taking on Martin Prachnio. And right now on OddsChecker, you can see William Knight is just a slight favorite here, about minus 120 on some books, minus 115. The comeback on Prachnio is about minus 105. Some books have him as the underdog. Who are you liking here?
I do like Knight to get this one done just because of the power. Now, this one's going to be very contingent on the first round for me because, of course, Knight, he's explosive. He's really fast hands. But if he doesn't get that finish in the first round, I feel like Prachnio, I feel like he's going to have the edge here to maybe edge down on the scorecards. So, it all depends for me what happens in the first round here because Marcin, I mean, we saw him get knocked out or finished by Sam Alvey. That was one of his last wins inside the octagon before that 10-fight losing streak. Not a great loss to have on your record. I understand that was his debut, so it's a little bit different. But I mean, three of his 4 losses, I should say, in the UFC have been by finish. So we have seen him get those first round losses, and Knight is capable of those first round finishes with his speed and power. It's just past that first round, I'm not so sure on Knight. So I might actually look at a first round prop here because I think if it gets out of the first round, he will lose by decision, but I like him to at least get it done at these odds here, looking at the first round prop.
No way I'm betting this fight. Two really unpredictable guys. I think maybe if you do want to look at some props, maybe look at the fight doesn't start round 2 prop or
Yeah.
something along those lines if you want to get a bit creative. But yeah, these are two really inconsistent fighters. I mean, I don't have to go over their entire resumes here, but William Knight coming off a pretty brutal loss to Devin Clark. Devin Clark does not finish a lot of his opponents. He was finished in the 3rd round. He had the loss to Maxine Grisham. Does have a nice win over Alonzo Menefield, but that's probably his best win. Outside of that, Fabio Charant, not in the UFC anymore. Alexa Kammer, again, I don't know what he's been up to, but I'm not that impressed with the inconsistency. And same with Prachnio as well. I mean, this is a guy that started his UFC career off with 3 straight losses, rebounded with 2 wins. Again, a good win over Cleo Roundtree and lost to Ike Villanueva. Yeah, I'm just going to stay away from this probably, but maybe I'll look at that fight doesn't start round 2 or the fight doesn't go the distance prop because I do think we will see a finish in this fight. Okay, let's move along to the heavyweight division. We've got Josh Parisian taking on Jamal Pogues. And right now, Jamal Pogues a big favorite here, minus 245. The comeback on Parisian, plus 205. Who are you liking here?
Not really either guy. The odds, Pogues might be the better prospect at this point, but I'm not really necessarily sold in a big heavyweight fight. It kind of just feels like another fight of I don't think these guys are going to necessarily be high in the rankings ever. It feels like they'll just kind of hang around in the UFC for a while. I'm not really super high on either one. Parisian, I guess, has a little bit more experience. He is coming off a nice stoppage win, but I would say maybe take the under here, but it's juiced anyway. So nothing really for me here. I don't have a strong lean on either of these guys at the odds.
I'm the same way. This is another fight I probably won't be betting. Maybe if the line gets a little bit higher for Jamal Pogues, because I have noticed it's gone up, I may lay a little bit on Josh Parisian just because of that experience factor. But here's the problem with Josh Parisian. When he fights and he's on, he's good. When he beat Alan Badeau, that was a very good comeback victory. But there's other fights where I think mentally he just hasn't been there. It's sort of and I've spoken to him a number of times. That is sort of a big hurdle for him, is to be able to perform on the big stage. So that's a bit of a concern. But then on the flip side, you got Jamal Pogues, who's making his UFC debut. Like, we've seen UFC jitters. We've seen Contender Series winners not look so good on their UFC debuts. So the fact that he's this much of a favorite is kind of scary, to be honest. I don't think the line should be this high. I'll take Pogues just because, again, he's a little bit younger, and I think there's a little bit more upside. And again, like I mentioned, there's a lot of inconsistency with Josh in his game. So that alone would make me want to take Jamal, but there's no way I'm laying minus 250 on Jamal Pogues. If anything, like I said, might throw a little stab on Josh Parisian, but this is another fight, kind of like the last one, where I would just honestly just stay away. Two really inconsistent guys. And I'd even put Pogues in the inconsistent category because he hasn't really proven that much. We were coming off, he's coming off 2 wins, but he had a loss just back in 2020 where he submitted. So it's not like he's really proven a lot either. So yeah, pick's going to be Pogues, but I'm going to be staying away from this one. Okay, co-main event, which I can't believe I'm saying here. No disrespect to either fighter, but this is a very odd fight to put it as a co-main event. I guess because there's probably not going to see the scorecards, but we've got Zach Pauga taking on Jordan Wright. And right now the odds makers have Pauga, again, minus 275 to come back on Wright, plus 240-ish around there. Who are you liking here?
Yeah, coming in, Wright looks pretty good, right? I mean, he had a nice win in his UFC debut over Villanueva, and then he did take a loss, but then he had a nice win over Jamie Pickett. So, he was 2-1. He looked pretty good, and now it's just kind of showing that he doesn't really have a chin, or even he actually got submitted in that time too. So he's been getting stopped quite a bit. Now he is getting a little bit more of a favorable matchup, at least in terms of he'll be more experienced here against Pauga. Pauga, he's just a huge guy who can he has some strong hands. Although he actually doesn't have as many finishes that I would like to see from someone coming into the UFC. Only 2 stoppage wins in 6 of his wins, but he's a big guy. He can hit hard. He's a former NFL player, so he's conditioned, you would think. And I don't know. I mean, like you said, this probably won't see the scorecards, but I don't know if that favors Wright or if it necessarily goes against him. It seems like he's always open to just being hit with some huge strike, and he just goes down. He's either knocked down or he's finished. It feels like he's just always open to take that huge shot. So I don't know if it not going to scorecards favors him or plays against him here. But he is explosive himself. So I think he could finish. I think for the odds, I would take a look at Wright. Definitely plus 230. That's pretty favorable for him in this spot, just because he is still capable of finishing the fight in his own right. We haven't really seen Pauga against, a UFC caliber fighter. So I would say that's my lean in this fight, but I don't have anything strong necessarily for this one.
Another tricky fight. I completely agree here. We should mention that Wright moving up to 205, Zach moving down from heavyweight. So Zach obviously lost the Ultimate Fighter in the Ultimate Fighter finals to Muhammad Usman, a fight that he was winning, and then out of nowhere, Usman just knocks him out. It was a really weird fight. So he's getting a second chance here. Jordan Wright, we know the story. He's been finished in numerous fights. I spoke to Jordan ahead of this one. Part of it may have been the weight cut. We'll see. He's talked about it being a process to get down to 185. The fact that he's not cutting, probably better for his chin, because again, when you cut more weight, you're more susceptible to getting knocked out. You don't have as much water in your body. So we'll see if that pays dividends. But I've just seen so many fights where Jordan Wright's been finished. It's like scaring me off from even betting him as an underdog in this spot. I think if you do want to play this, you go the fight doesn't go the distance. I think we will see a finish here. But I honestly don't know, because again, Zach looked great in his last fight, but then he also got knocked out. So it's like this could happen here with Jordan. Like this kind of the best way I can put it is like, I feel like people, and you look at the odds, I mean, obviously Zach, I think is, not taking anywhere close to the damage that Jordan has. So by that alone, and the fact that, I was going to say he's younger. He's not. He's actually older than Jordan. But I just think the fact that, he hasn't seen him take that much damage will kind of favor him in this spot. But I could also just see me saying, oh, yeah, Zach's going to win. And then Jordan knocks him out, right? Like, because it could happen. That's what happened with, Jamie Pickett and Ike Villanueva as well. So I'm going to take Zach as far as my pick goes. But yeah, I think the fight that, I don't even want to bet Wright, because I'm not even that confident that he can do it. Honestly, I just don't know. It's just, he's a guy that just gets finished way too much for my liking. And, yeah, so I'll pick Zach, but probably another fight I'm going to stay away from. But don't worry, I have a lead in the main event. We'll get to that right now. It's a new main event. It's Jéssica Andrade stepping in for Talia Santos. If you didn't hear, Santos's corners could not get into the U.S. due to some visa issues. So she's like, all right, I'm out. So now Jéssica Andrade steps in on short notice. Andrade, of course, coming off that win over Lauren Murphy not that long ago. And right now, the odds makers have Andrade as about a minus 150 favorite here. Interesting odds here. I'll talk about that in a sec. But Ben, who do you like here?
Yeah, it is really interesting odds. Obviously Andrade coming on the short notice, that probably plays a little bit into it. Blanchfield, I actually am pretty close friends with a friend who's pretty close friends with Blanchfield, so it's a little tough for me because I feel a little bit biased in this spot, but I want to take Blanchfield here as an underdog in this spot. I think having that full camp, she's obviously a very capable grappler and wrestler. We've seen that in her last two fights with a very impressive win over Molly McCann. Of course, I'm trying in fights, especially if you end up knowing someone, it's hard to not let your bias kind of shine through. So that's a tough spot from here, because I'm like, do I like her because she's an underdog and because she's probably the hungrier fighter here? She's coming off two good wins. I don't know. So it's tough for me to know if I'm going to bet on this one. I probably won't bet on this fight. But just if I'm making a pick for the show, I'm going to take Blanchfield. Because Andrade, she's probably going to have to at some point outstrike her on the feet. Maybe she can get her down, but Andrade is very capable on the ground. She's a very strong fighter. So it's going to be tough for her there. She's going to have to outstrike her on the feet, which isn't necessarily easy against Andrade. We've seen it happen to Andrade, though. Jacek outstruck her, Nama Rose outstruck her, and Weili Zhang. So, we've seen it happen, but it's not easy. Andrade, she's pretty much good everywhere. This is a very tough fight for Erin Blanchfield. Is she going to be ready for the step up? I don't know, but she has looked very impressive so far. So, this is going to be a test for her. I like her as underdog odds here, but I don't think I'm going to bet it just because I'm not sure how much my bias is shining through on this one.
No, listen, you and I feel the same way. If anyone's watched my picks over the years, I've been very high on Erin Blanchfield. I think she is the best prospect in that weight class. I think there's a lot of potential. The problem is, Ben, this is a huge step up. Going from Molly McCann to even going from, and just spoiler alert, when Talia Santos was fighting Blanchfield, I like Santos in that fight. I like Andrade here for that exact reason, because it's such a big step up. And look, you got to face the competition you're given. I get that, right? And she went out there, A+ performance against Molly McCann, dominated her, took Molly out, finished Molly. Molly's not an easy girl to finish in that weight class. Very impressive. But the problem is she's fighting someone in Jéssica Andrade who, in my opinion, has the best power in the weight class. I'd put her and Valentina Shevchenko at the top of the division. Andrade doesn't just go out there and outstrike her opponents. She obliterates them. And you look at that last fight against Lauren Murphy, that probably should have been, not probably, that should have been stopped. Murphy was taking so much damage in that fight. If her corner, maybe looked at this a little bit better and kind of, decided that it should throw in the towel, I think that would have been a good call. But you look at the finishes here. Cynthia Calvillo, another girl that does not get finished that often. Caitlin Chukagian, that doesn't get finished that often. These are all really good wins. Rose Namajunas, Kovalkiewicz, she's got that Mike Tyson type of power. We're just, and you don't see that in a lot of the women's weight classes. So the fact that Andrade has 5 rounds to do that, I like those chances a lot. Now, We saw Erin Blanchfield struggle a bit in the striking with JJ Aldrich. I would like to think that she's improved since then, because again, she is only 23. I think people have to remember that as well.
Yeah.
But again, first 5-round fight for Erin, going from Molly to Andrade, huge jump up. Never fought a striker like Andrade. I can't pick Erin here. I can't. I'd love to. I think it would be a great story. Maybe she does go out there and surprise us. Maybe she has leveled up enough, but that's too much of a guess for me in this fight. I got to go with what I know. And what I know is that Jéssica Andrade knocks out most girls in this division. So I'm going Jéssica Andrade by knockout. If you get her inside the distance, you're going to get even better odds here. We don't have it up yet, but it will be available soon. But don't just bet Andrade straight up if you like her. Take her by finish. I think if she does win, I think she's going to win by finish. So yeah, I like Andrade. I think the odds are very generous here, to be honest. If I was capping this fight, I would probably go Andrade -200, -300 around there. It's nothing against Erin. It's more about how good Andrade is in the weight class. So
yeah, no, you bring up a lot of good points, because it's like there's a lot more unknowns, but betting on Blanchfield here, especially with the first 5-round fight and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So when we get into championship rounds, it's like, what are we going to see? Of course, she's been preparing for 5 rounds, so like, you never know, but
well, she hasn't. If you remember, well, hold on. Let me just interrupt here just for a quick second. If you remember, this wasn't the original main event. This was supposed to be Chito Vera and Corey Sandhagen. So partway through camp, they moved it to 5 rounds. So that's again another reason. Whereas Andrade, she's been in title fights before. She's had the 5 rounds. So that's again another sort of knock on Erin. And like I said, I hope Erin goes out there and proves including me, wrong. I'd love to see it, because I think it's good for the division. Andrade just can't make up her mind which weight class she's in either, right? So it's a few different things that way. But again, I think with the evidence we have presented to us right now, you have to go Andrade, in my opinion. That's how I'm looking at it.
That's the smart pick in this fight. I agree with all the points you said. Like, your points are smarter. Mine's more just like heart-based.
No, but you bring up good points. There is that X factor with Erin. Sometimes you see a prospect, like a Hamzat Chimaev or, some of these other prospects where they have sort of that it factor. Erin has that. I'm not denying that. Not to mention, I didn't even mention this, she's got a black belt. So if this does get to the ground, Erin's going to have some advantages there. But you're fighting a pitbull in Andrade. I don't know. Not like, I wouldn't pick many women against Andrade in that division in general. So it's not even a knock on Erin. It's just, it's more praising how good Andrade is in that fight.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
So there we go.
Agreed.
All right. So there we go. UFC Vegas 69. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll be back next week previewing, I guess, UFC Vegas 70. And then we got UFC 285 after that. So a lot of fun fights coming up in the horizon. For myself, for Ben, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time, and go cash those bets this weekend.